What's up everyone? Today I am painting Spearhead from Zombicide's Green Horde. He is one of the Kickstarter exclusive guys, and I think that this guy turned out totally awesome. I was really surprised with how great he turned out. It's been a while since I've kind of surprised myself in going up a notch on painting one of the miniatures. So definitely I hope that you're able to learn something from this one, because I am super happy with what I was able to put down on this model. But let's get down to the table and I'll show you how I did them. So we started with a Zenithal Prime as usual, best way to get the highlights right. Painted them all in black and then sprayed from the top down some white primer. Started with Vallejo Model Color's Flat Flesh. This is a nice even skin tone. Now we're going to completely cover this up, so you can actually paint this really with any sort of skin tone color that you have. You don't have to be too concerned. We are going to completely cover it, but I wanted it to look like he had white paint on and not like he was just really pale. And so to do that, I figured the best way would be to completely cover him in a skin tone and then work my way to the tone that I want from there. After covering him completely, I then use Nuln Oil on the skin. Again, this is under the impression that we're trying to make him look like he's painted, so even though you probably would never wash somebody's skin tone with Nuln Oil, it actually sort of works in this, and you'll see how he comes out at the end. I think it definitely works, but if you have a different way of doing this, leave a comment down below. I just had to figure this one out, so I would love to know how you ended up figuring it out. Now I'm using Ivory, Thrall Flesh from P3, and Wolf Grey from Vallejo Game Color. Basically what I did was I took the Wolf Grey and the Thrall Flesh, mixed them about 50-50, and then as I highlight, I mixed in different versions of each of those colors, trying to get this skin tone of paint on skin that I was looking for. What I ended up coming up with was about a 1-to-1-to-1 mixture of each, and then I highlighted with I added Ivory to highlight, and then added some Wolf Flesh later on, or not Wolf Flesh, Wolf Grey later on to low light. So here's some Wolf Grey here, and this is a lot more Wolf Grey added in. I kept going, like I said, I kept going back and forth. You didn't want too much of the Thrall Flesh. That sort of made it look blue, and I was struggling with going back and forth between it looking blue or it just looking gray, and it wasn't sort of looking like white paint. But I think eventually just working through it and adding a little bit of each color at a time was the best way to figure out how to do it, and I think that that's what you're going to have to do as well. Now before I finished my highlights, I went in and added some German Gray into the eyes. German Gray is a very dark gray. You could use black as well if you wanted to. If you don't have a huge collection of paints, black works just fine. And then here you can see I'm highlighting with pretty much pure Ivory at this point, because it's just highlights. And so I'm trying to get the most amount of pop out of everything. Also make your eye believe that you're looking at white, but I wanted that skin tone below it to look like sort of natural, but also sort of like dead and gross, and just all sorts of things at one time. Maybe I took on too big of a task. I don't know. You decide at the end how it looks. And then here's pure white, which is a very bright white, obviously, but in comparison to Ivory, it's very, very bright, and you don't want to use too much. So you can see I'm sort of like stippling it on, and then here on some of the muscles, I'm adding just a little bit extra there. You want to be careful with that. Here's Reddish Flesh. I'm putting that inside the mouth, so it's the inside of his mouth. But you want to be careful with the white. If you add too much, you'll definitely cause problems with your model of it looking very imbalanced. So he has teeth that are showing, and it's honestly optional if you wanted to show them or not. I decided to go for it, so I grabbed a little bit of Ivory and painted his teeth inside his mouth after I did the Reddish Flesh. It's also a good time to do that a little bit earlier in the step, because that allows you to correct any errors if you made any. So looking at the model, you can see that he has, or the artwork, you can see that he has painted black on his head. And instead of using pure black, I used German gray again. Again, if you don't have German gray or really dark gray, just use black. It's fine. It'll work out pretty much the same. I just like the way German gray covers more than I like my black paints. My black paints always seem to come out really ashy and sometimes have pretty low coverage quality. So I'm partial to German gray. So after I use the German gray and put some paint on his face and his head, I then come in with the red here, and I mixed a little bit of orange into the red to just bring it into that spectrum, and then painted them up top. You have to be careful because you can make him look like a clown if you don't do it well, but you can easily just go back in with white in between the red and thin it out. That's what I had to do with the German gray that I painted on his face. I went back in with some Ivory and some white and thinned it out and made sure that the lines were really straight, because if the lines are very, very straight, then it keeps it from looking natural and makes sure that it looks like paint. Here I have the P3 Umbral Umber. That's that real dark chocolate brown that I love to use, and we're using that on his kilt skirt, his boots, his pants, his wraps on his wrist, the leather wraps on his chest. He doesn't have a lot of colors, so it's nice because you don't have to worry about having this huge color palette. You just get to make the colors that he does have look really, really awesome. So I decided to do a true metallic metal style. I'm still not very good at non-metallic metal, and I really am not good at true metallic because I haven't done it very often. I've only done it a couple of times. But what I'm doing is I'm painting silver on all the metal. So all of the metal bits, he has a ton of them. They're on his legs, on his chest, on his back. You have the spikes on the end of the spears. You have knee pads. You have ones on the tips of his feet. You have them on the back of his forearms. Basically, he's covered in metal and leather. But you can take the silver and paint all of the metal pretty easy with that, and then I'll show you some ways that I gave it depth in a little bit. So I'm using black here to cover the spear, and I also covered the spear head because I didn't want to paint silver on it because it didn't have an even coat on it yet of any certain color. It was both like white and black, and that shows through on the silver. So I wanted to coat it in black first before painting the silver over, but eventually I'll paint the silver over just the same. Here's Agrax Earthshade. Agrax Earthshade is a great shade to use for leather. Darkens it down. It already matches the color in basic tone. Just allows it to take on a different hue and be darker. So I just used that. One of the things it also allows you to do is know where to highlight. If you put the shade on, the shade pools in the low light areas, which allows you to easily see where you should be highlighting. Now I'm using Nuln Oil, and I thinned it down with a little bit of water, and I'm painting it on all the silver areas. Then I let it dry, and I go back and paint it on again. What I'm trying to do is take away some of the shine. and also add some depth. So where it's pooling is just on the edges. It makes the metal look more natural. It makes it look more like steel. So even though it's shiny, it still is getting dulled down and looking in that more natural range of how metal armor would look. Because definitely this desert guy here that is, you know, his face is all painted like a clown, his whole body is painted white, he looks incredibly insane, he's got giant spears. He's not going to be wearing silver armor, walking around in something that's going to draw attention. He is there to fight, not to look pretty. So here I started adding Wolf Gray to the Umbral Umber to lighten it up. And I'm not sure why I used Wolf Gray over something like Ivory or White. I think I just wanted to ensure that I did it subtly. As I've talked about in a few videos so far, I'm trying to focus on really pushing my highlights and really trying to make things pop and make things stand out versus things that are sitting right next to it through use of, you know, lighter colors. And I think that was a way that I could do it in a controlled way without feeling like I was doing too much too fast. Here I'm using flat brown and khaki, and I'm not using them both mixed together at the same time. I think I just don't have two clips of it. But I'm using flat brown and basically dragging the flat brown right through the center of all of the leather pieces, so that the edge is staying dark, because we have the Agrax Earthshade and the Umbral Umber. Then you're getting a lighter center with the flat brown. Then I'm going to come back with the khaki and edge highlight and put some streaks in it to make the leather look used. And so you can already see here that the leather is all used and looks beat up because now I've put those different layers in it. Here I mix some black into the silver, and that's another way that I've seen some people do highlights and lowlights for true metallic metal. So all of the metal that is on his leather pieces, I went in the bottom parts of it, so the bottom third I did in this black and silver. The silver takes the black mixture really easily and mixes with it well. And then now I'm doing Wolf Gray and silver. So this is not the same mixture. I didn't add Wolf Gray to the black and silver mixture. I added it straight to silver. So now this brings it up to a really, really bright, like platinum color. And that I'm putting on all of the top edges. So here I'm putting on the top edges of the spear, just like I put on the bottom edge, the black and silver. And it just gives you like an instant look of shade. Very simply. And you can see on the spear you have a dark side and a light side. And I did that also on the top third of all the metal pieces, going around and just pretty much edge highlighting all the metal pieces at the top third of it. And it makes it look like a really nice natural highlight. And it also doesn't take too much energy to do it. Alright, well this is a really long clip. I didn't realize I didn't clip this thing. That's fine. Showing you how I did it. I mean, it does come out really nice. So in case you had questions, there you see I'm touching all of them along the top, dragging it down just a little bit, making sure that I get some of it on all of the pieces. And anything that is pointing up gets that. Now the Wolf Gray is going to be my base color for the white wraps on this black spear. So the spear's wood is black, but it has white wraps on it. And I think that the Wolf Gray makes a really good base color to put on there. It helps cover the black well enough to allow the white to shine through. But it is enough into the white spectrum to match perfectly, and enough into the gray spectrum to look like a shadow color. So you just want a real nice thin brush. You don't want this too watered down because you want to make sure it stays thin. And then you're going to go over those same wraps with Ivory. And this you're going to do about the top 2/3. So you're going to make sure that the bottom third stays in the wolf gray color. You don't want to cover that at all. But the top third or so, or top 2/3 or so, you're going to do in the Ivory. And do that on both sides. And finally, we're going to do the top third, basically just a stroke on each of them in white. So when you're looking at it from the front, you're going to see that progression from the gray to the ivory to the white, and it definitely looks really, really good. Not good enough to take away from the awesome model, but good enough that it matches. So here he is, and I did a really cool desert base. If you want to see how to do that, you can go check out my cowboy mini that I painted up. He has a desert base as well. That is from Wild West Exodus is the name of the game. But please let me know, how would you have done this skin? Do you like the way that I did it? Do you like the way that he has turned out? I thank you all so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more painting videos of Zombicide Green Horde and other games like Kick-Ass the board game and Harry Potter's miniature game. And I really, really appreciate it, and I will see you all next time.